1015 FM, 720 AM. KDON, the talk of Las Vegas.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. 1 full hour of wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's bring on the host. Here is Mark Hoke.
All right, everybody. Holy frozen tundra, Batman. Oh, my goodness. Joe, I am still trying to catch my breath from producing the last show. Unbelievable.
Well, at least you got me. I could talk all night. So
yeah, I love you, Joe. You're my hero, sort of, sometimes.
I hope the 49ers win this game. That's embarrassing. Block punt with 4 minutes to go. How do you let that happen?
Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you what. Yeah, we've had an eye on it here in the studio. Of course, 49ers and Green Bay Packers in a very cold, chilly, and, yeah, they're down, 25-yard line now. Yikes. Oh, Aaron.
Well, they're closer to the 30, and that's what I hate. It's like you're counting on a guy to kick a 48-yard field goal with no time left. Try to move the ball up a little closer.
He is a Penn State guy.
Eesh.
Yeah, I got to give him a little credit. Kick's coming here shortly.
Robbie Gould's good.
Yes.
But how about you make him kick a 35-yarder instead of a 50-yarder?
Yeah, well, we saw an interception earlier today that ended up costing a certain team, so.
Well, I like the Packers, but I have a nice bet, the Rams versus the Bills for the Super Bowl. $15 pays me $525.
Nice.
So if the Rams could beat Tampa next week, and if it's San Francisco, then they got home field, and I'm really liking the Rams, and I think whoever wins the Bills game tomorrow is winning the Super Bowl. So,
yeah, I want Niners Bengals 3. That'll be fun.
Well,
anyway, by the way, well, I know we're talking sports here because it's everybody's keeping an eye on this game. But of course, I'm Mark Hoke. This is the Mark Hoke Show on our Saturday night edition, and we're talking pro wrestling.
Oh, is that what I thought it was? The 1-800-JOE wins football.
Yeah, well, I've heard that that number has been disconnected very badly. But anyway. Of course, and my co-pilot for the evening, Joe DeFalco of Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas. You can go to fswvegas.com and check it out. Joe, what do you have going on? Give everybody a little rundown real fast.
Well, we're excited. We're now going to be at the original home of FSW, the Silver Nugget. Front row is oversold out. We're going to have to squeeze in as many chairs as we can. So we're excited about that. It's the first row sellout. Now we're working on a venue sellout.
There you go. And so make sure you guys go to fswvegas.com for the big Mecca event on February 4th. It is a loaded card. I'm telling you, get down there. And Joe, I've got to rearrange my schedule here real quick, make sure I can get the night off. So we'll talk about that later. But yeah, looking forward to getting down there and seeing an amazing night. Oh, Kick's coming, by the way.
Oh, Kick's already gone. They won.
Kick gone, and Aaron Rodgers gets to have a chair. Ouch. Ouch.
Where's Aaron Rodgers playing next year?
I don't know if it's going to be in Green Bay, but that one's going to hurt for a long, long time. Wow.
That's a bad loss right there.
That is a terrible loss. So San Francisco's moving on. Anyway, well, back to the wrestling. Boy, an interesting week, Joe. We didn't have any bloodletting or anything like that. No massive firings. Just, I thought a lot of good wrestling on all the shows this week. I think everybody did a pretty good job. WWE, AEW in general. Of course, some flops here or there, but a pretty solid week. And I know that one thing we've been talking about a lot is Jade Cargill, the AEW TBS Women's Champion, which is the secondary title for the women in All Elite Wrestling. Jade got another match with Anna Jay this week. Did you see it? And if you did, what'd you think?
Nah, I didn't see it.
Passed? Well, I will comment that Jade looked better than she did. Slowly getting there.
Who'd she beat?
Anna Jay. Took a few kicks to the face, but otherwise all good. But it's interesting that we're talking about the progression, and now one thing that I think is going to be is a mistake. At the end of the match, they put up on the big screen up there that she's 25-0. So now you have a woman who has never wrestled before, a great physique, still learning on the job, has a championship belt now. And now it looks like, Joe, they're going to hype this
Goldberg.
undefeated
She's
streak.
She's the female Goldberg.
Well, and that's honestly, that's what I was thinking. I'm just like, why are you going to do that?
I want to see her and William Regal.
Ah. That's an old Goldberg reference, folks. But Joe, is hyping an undefeated streak for a brand new wrestler a good idea?
Of course. Well,
really?
You gotta get something behind people.
Okay.
It's better than having the losing streak.
Well, yeah.
Want people to know, hey, this is the hot commodity, undefeated, can't be beat. You got to tune in to watch. Can somebody beat her?
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I just when I saw that, I was like, man, that's putting a lot of pressure on her to keep this rolling and so on. But
I'm more interested in what I've been reading about AEW, that those contracts are coming up and they're starting to ready for the purge.
Yeah, and funny you mentioned that because I was getting to that. Let me see, because you kind of threw me there. I had something else up on the big board here to go over, but yeah, let's just go to that. I'll find what I want to talk about. But I do have quite a few stories on that right now. That we had talked on the Sunday show, especially. Of course, make sure you can tune in with me, Joe, and Andrew Fishfane on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Another 90-minute edition coming up tomorrow, by the way, about how the AEW roster, they had signed a ton of people when they got started, and now a lot of those contracts are coming up, and we're starting to see people fade away. Pretty Peter Avalon was one of the first ones to go, but we haven't seen Marco Stunt for a while. He was the small person that was hanging around with Jurassic Express. He has not been seen on TV, I believe, since September ballpark. But he is gone, he hasn't been seen on TV for a while. Joey Janela, another one. That the contract coming up is Brian Cage, which I think is the most interesting one. They say he's been back, according to Cultaholic, he's been backstage, but they obviously haven't used him for some reason. But Joe, one thing that we've seen people just get thrown out of WWE, but in AEW, they're actually respecting the contracts, and good or bad, they've been keeping everybody hanging around. But now those 2-year contracts, those 3-year contracts. Well, actually, the 2 years right now are starting to go away, and we're going to start cleaning things up a little bit, I think, with AEW.
Okay, well, here's my thinking. Now, it sounds great that we're not releasing anybody. How do we know that that's not the contract? Just because the WWE has that out clause to where they can release anybody, how do we know that AEW can release a Brian Cage? If he signed a 2-year deal, maybe it's a guaranteed 2-year deal. And everybody's jumping on, this Tony Khan, what a great guy. He's not using it. Do we know this? I don't know it. I've not heard either way. So even though, my inside sources and, I know Cage very well, that's never been a topic of conversation. But I also saw Leo Rush. His contract's expiring next month. What did he have, a 6-month contract?
Yeah, apparently he had a 6-month contract. And I'm sure that Tony Khan really probably wanted to end it sooner after that little tweet he made on New Year's Eve. But otherwise, yeah, he apparently had a short one. But, I do think that it's very interesting to see how AEW and WWE handle their contracts. And I mean, WWE's WWE. You know, they are the king of the hill. But is this more appealing to performers if they are coming in and they see that if they sign a deal, they're going to keep the deal? You know, we've only seen a couple people get released, and that was because of conduct. But otherwise, you know, they appear to have stuck to their word.
Well, they have, but like I said, you know, I am not aware of how those contracts work, so it's interesting. You know, they have so many guys they're paying, and, you know, it's not like WWE, so because they're not publicly traded, so we can't find out how much money AEW lost. You know, I heard rumors that they lost $8 million last year, and I'll be honest, I can't believe it's only $8 million, so...
Well, and I think a lot of that too comes from, you know, they're I'm sure they're doing great merch sales, and the pay-per-views have done great. You know, they've hit some big numbers on their pay-per-view shows. So,
yeah, but they only do 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, but well,
you know what's great? You know, a bad WWE pay-per-view back in the day would be like, oh man, they only did 250,000. You know, I don't see, you know, All or Nothing doing 1.5 million buys like WWE's done.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, do you think that they stay with that model, or do they try to build their own network like WWE has, or, you know, create a deal like they have with Peacock?
I don't think so. I don't think they, you know, everything you can watch is there as you can watch on regular television, basically. You know, it's kind of like, people I saw like a month or 2 ago, people were complaining because they were trying to create their own type of network. Say, hey, pay for this and pay for that. And it's like, but I can watch it on TNT or TBS now or on YouTube. So I'm going to pay to watch a show that's on YouTube? That it didn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, well, we'll see where that all turns out. But, you know, I wasn't... Yeah, the Leo Rush thing kind of... I found it funny that since he made that tweet when the whole thing was going on Big Swole, we hadn't seen Leo Rush on TV, and now all of a sudden he's like, I can't stay in one place, man. I'm not, you know, I got to keep moving for my mental sake and everything else. Do you buy that?
I kind of do. You know, I know Leo a little bit. You know, he worked one of our shows, a couple of our shows. Then he ended up canceling a show against Chris Bay, and he was injured, and then he announced his retirement. And similar to ACH, you know, came back again and kind of left and then came back again. I knew something was up because, you know, for our Mecca show, we had reached out. It looked like we had Jay Lethal set. We were supposed to have Leo Rush. Joey Janela hit me up because we have a new trainee, the lady that he's been working with, Kayla Rossi. She lives in St. George, so she's now become a trainee at FSW. And the same thing that I asked Joey Janela and Leo Rush and Jay Lethal and, you know, even one of our production guys, Mikey, was in Chicago today and talking to Dante Martin and Sky Blue. They all said the same exact thing, that they cannot work on Friday shows any longer because whether they're on Rampage or not, they don't want anybody from AEW working a show on a Friday, being that it's on the air. And
sure.
And Brian Cage is working my show on a Friday, so that shows you where they stand in that situation. And I got a message from Leo Rush earlier this week to say, hey, just so you know, I'm available to be used, you know, any day of the week. So that kind of, yeah. So that made me think, oh, he must not be part of AEW anymore. And then all of a sudden everything came out today, and the guy messaged me because on February 4th, where we have the Mecca, Leo Rush is showing up on a Friday night to work AAW in Chicago. So obviously he now has the freedom to do what he wants.
Interesting. Well, we'll see what the future has for Leo. I know he's struggled with some things over mental issues and depression and so on. So, hopefully he's going to be all right. But unfortunately, maybe the time on AEW is over. Speaking of time on AEW, we have a return as Jon Moxley is back. Of course, I believe he's wrestling tonight at a GCW card, if I remember correctly, defending his title.
That's actually tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay, excuse me.
But I did tell you guys last week there's no way he's not showing up on AEW before he shows up at GCW.
Yeah, so, of course, you were right. And he, of course, did cut a pretty good promo. Just about everybody seemed to like it on Wednesday, and then wrestled Ethan Page on Friday. Boy, I tell you, the time away, but he trimmed. I guess if alcohol was the problem, boy, I'll tell you what, not drinking booze seems to have done something pretty good for his body, because he trimmed down and looked pretty sharp.
And he wrestled today, so as he had told me once before, he could do whatever he wants. So obviously that Friday thing doesn't matter, because he showed up, I believe, at Northeast Wrestling today and opened the show and wrestled.
Wow. That's interesting. Well,
yes.
So the return of Jon Moxley looked like they're setting him up against Bryan Danielson, which was the match that was actually supposed to take place in that World Championship qualifier they had. Your thoughts about Mox getting turned loose with Bryan Danielson in AEW? That's going to be a way different match than it would be in the WWE ring, that's for sure.
Yes and no. I can't see it being as ultra-violent that Moxley's capable of just with Bryan Danielson, but, again, we said, there's no way that Danielson was going to lose to Hangman, and he did after the first thing. So obviously they're content with going with Adam Page as their champ. But, these are marquee matchups that, I would think you'd want to not give that away. And, that was always WCW's problem. It's like, build these matches up for the pay-per-views. And if you see it all on the regular TV, what gives you, the idea that somebody's going to pay $40, $50 to watch it on pay-per-view when you can watch all the good matches for free?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Of course, they're pushing the CM Punk and MJF feud up quite a bit. I guess they're getting ready to. I would imagine they'll be on Revolution, I believe, which is in March, if I'm correct. But boy, they still got a ways to drag that out, though. That's another 6 or 7 weeks.
Well, and that's the issue of running, 3 or 4 pay-per-views only. WWE didn't have Hulk Hogan on TV twice a week. He was lucky he was on, period.
I remember,
He'd come on, he'd cut a promo. That was Hulk Hogan on TV once every 3 weeks. It was like, you better go to the house show if you ever want to watch a Hulk Hogan match. And if he did wrestle on TV, it was against, some low mid-card guy that he was going to thump in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a couple matches that they did on TV. And of course, they had Saturday Night's Main Event too, which had some great matches.
Right.
But otherwise, on the regular program, it was a very rare appearance unless they had something they had to set up, and that was it. I remember like the Orndorff thing. Obviously the Piper's Pit with Andre, but otherwise, he did not show up very often.
Nope, didn't need to.
Nope.
And, that was the day when, the house shows mattered. Madison Square Garden, man, they do 18,000, 20,000 every single month. Like, it was a rarity that, Madison Square Garden didn't sell out every single month for wrestling.
And that's changed now. WWE is having a real trouble. I know the last Madison Square Garden show, I don't even think they hit 10,000, if I remember right.
Yeah, from what I remember, they were saying, and then they had to put Edge in the match in the cage match because I think Owens tested positive or something like that, and It's crazy.
Yeah, it was a mess. That is for sure. Well, and one other thing that I wanted to touch on with you, with Jon Moxley, and his situation. Of course, Bubba Ray Dudley made a comment in an interview that he said he should have apologized to the fans, which caught a lot of flack for him. But there was another article that I read too, about Adam Shearer, the former Braun Strowman, who said he's not in any hurry to get back to signing with an organization yet, because I needed some downtime. I forgot what life is like, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and I'll throw mine in too, about how the wrestlers. It's changed so much. Like, when we were growing up, these guys were doing 250 shows a year. Ric Flair was barely getting a day off. But now, it seems like that landscape has changed a little bit, that everybody is trying to watch out for themselves a little bit more. And, for anybody to give Moxley crap about, taking a step aside, I think it was insane. If the guy had a problem, he had a problem. He needed to fix it. And that's the number one priority. But Joe, what do you see over, with your experiences, promoting cards, and, I've been a fan for a long time as well, about how wrestlers are starting to protect themselves, for good or bad, in terms of their mental health and so on. And, is it the right way to handle it?
Well, I think nowadays, at worst, these guys maybe have to work 3 days a week. We were fortunate. Our boy Disco, came in with Rey Mysterio and Dominic to train at the facility this week. And basically he was talking about the schedule, and it was like they were flying out Sunday and they were back by Tuesday.
Wow.
And it was like, and all they did was, Monday Night Raw. That was it. That's all they had to do, And the week before, they had to go in for a couple days because they had, a house show or two. But the schedule is so much easier. As you said, Ric Flair, it wasn't a lie when he'd be like, twice on Sunday. He'd have a 2:00 show and an 8:00 show.
Yeah, he'd do a lot of weeks where he would wrestle 8 or 9 matches.
But the difference was, if he didn't work, he didn't get paid.
Right.
So of course you worked. He wanted to live that lavish lifestyle. So he got taken around, especially as the NWA champion. He goes to St. Louis. He's flown in. He's going to get first-class treatment. They're going to give him the hotel, And when it was WWF and WCW, it was like you had to rent they'll fly you from your house in Florida to California, but then on that 4 days in a row, you're renting a car to go from Anaheim to, San Francisco,
right,
up to Seattle.
Yeah, it's interesting that how it's changed so much, but then people are still like, my mental health isn't quite there, and I'm not, and just aren't able to handle it. I'm curious as to what's different. What's changed now, and we'll pick that topic up here. Well, yeah, and that was going to be my point. But we gotta hit a break. Of course, Joe DeFalco. Make sure you go to fswvegas.com. Get your tickets for Mecca now, man. We'll give Joe a chance to talk about that car a little bit more. And of course, I'm Mark Hoke. Thanks for being with us on the Mark Hoke Show. Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, Facebook The Mark Hoke Show, markhokeshow.com. Stick around. We got a lot more coming up, and I might be giving Joe kudos for his New Year's prediction.
101.5 FM, 720 AM. KDON, the talk of Las Vegas.
You're listening to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Vegas, The Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Now, here again is Mark Hoke.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Doing our wrestling thing here on a Saturday night on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM. K-Don, the talk of Las Vegas, along with future stars of wrestling's Joe DeFalco. He's the lord and master of that domain. Joe, have you recovered from the Niners' victory yet?
Well, I teased Green Bay getting 8, so I'm not too worried about it. You know, I do my teasers. I like those better because, you know, the stuff that happens like that, like they can't move the ball. They're doing nothing. They're up 10-3. There's 4 minutes and 40 seconds to go, and they somehow win.
You know where Aaron Rodgers should go play next? San Francisco. Go home. Plus, he can't beat him in the playoffs. So there you go.
You know, everybody bashes Jimmy G, and it's crazy. It was like when he was with New England, he never lost. He goes to San Francisco in the middle of the year. I think they were 0-10, and they end up 6-10. He ends up winning 6 games in a row. Then he gets hurt, comes back. They go to the Super Bowl. Like, whatever happened to you're a winner.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
You know, and again, he wasn't supposed to win last week. He isn't supposed to go to Green Bay and win this week. And again, he didn't do that much, but he still completed a few of those passes that they needed to do, and he won the game.
Yep, there you
Bottom
go.
line.
So there you go, little Jimmy G action tonight.
A winner's a winner.
A win. I agree.
Reminds me of my hero, Doug Flutie.
Joe Montana. I'd still take him against Brady, and people would kill me for saying that. But
Steve Young was better.
Wow. Okay, whatever you say. Anyway, to get back to the topic we were talking about the current climate for what wrestlers have to do as opposed to the way things were. Yeah, and you said what I was going to say, that there's been so many societal changes. I think that part of that is I think we've gotten a little softer as a society in general, but on the same part of it, I think there's more scrutiny that today's performers have to go through than people did maybe back in the 80s or early 90s. You've got the internet, which just, your life's out there all the time, and every little thing that you do, everybody hears about it. And, you face much more criticism publicly than you did back then. And, so I it's kind of a combination of both, I think, that of what's changed and what's made people be more conscious of their mental health when they're doing a profession like professional wrestling. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you can't do certain storylines. People get offended. Everything's offensive. It was kind of like, I think it was Cornette. Somebody was saying, because the issue in AEW with Nyla Rose or whatever, and it's like, people used to get stabbed.
Yeah.
That there was so much heat in these heels. Now it's like somebody takes offense to somebody saying something negative. And it's like, back in the day it was, hey, they bought their ticket. As long as they didn't cross the guardrail, they could say whatever they want, and you better not do anything. Now it's like, well, got to throw this person out. He said an offensive thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because AEW's now had 3 recent incidents. 2 audio. One was with just with Moxley this week, that somebody insulted him when he was getting ready to cut that promo. We had the Nyla Rose sign. We had the Anthony Bowens homophobic comment that it was of course it's quiet in the arena at the time and it gets out. But my God, if these guys had to put up, and ladies had to put up with what they did back, like with Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express, wow. I don't know if anybody would be able to handle it. I mean, it was bad. People don't remember that for some reason, that it was pretty brutal out there in the stands.
Well, like I said, I'm a promoter. I'm 56 years old. I grew up, when, Bruno Sammartino was the champ. You know what I mean? So I've been there and I've watched wrestling evolve or devolve, however you want to say. But, storylines that you used to be able to do, now you're going to get canceled for it.
Yeah.
Because, the good guy, bad guy. It's like, as I said, I don't know if I talked about it here, but I had an idea once for a guy who lost a lot of weight and was talking about doing a cancer angle. And it was, oh, my God, how could you ever think of doing something like that? And I'm like, well, aren't we supposed to be like a movie? We're telling a story, good's supposed to triumph over evil, and we're incorporating that like you would in a movie. Why can you do it in a movie, but you can't do it in wrestling? Oh, you can't do that. And it's like, okay, can't do anything. You know how many angles were based on race or stereotypes?
Oh, my God, yeah.
That's what wrestling was. It was a giant stereotype. But in the end, the good guy was supposed to triumph over the bad guy. And now it's like, well, he's not a bad guy. He's a gray area. And Steve Austin was a gray area. And The Rock was a gray area. And everybody in Ring of Honor is a gray area. Back in the day, you hated the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. He was a weasel kicking the basketball so the kid couldn't get the $100.
Oh, I remember that.
It was great stuff. And the idea was to be as hated as you possibly could. You'd need security to walk into your car. But that's how you made more money, because people were paying to hopefully see you get
beat up. They wanted and it's something that I think is lost in WWE right now, is that people just don't care about the characters, and it's been bad writing and everything else, but there's not a lot there to evoke emotion. I've always called professional wrestling an athletic soap opera. That to me is the perfect description of what it's all about. Is you have the athleticism, you have the excitement of what goes on in the ring, but you also have to do things to draw people in and make people care about these people. And especially now that the curtain's been removed, and kayfabe is gone. When people really thought that this was a good guy, this was a bad guy. They the good guys didn't travel with the bad guys. They had separate locker rooms and everything else. All that's gone. So you have to do something to get people to care about these characters. And and I think that's where WWE has failed so badly lately, that there's just very few people that you care about.
It was blasphemy when Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik got caught in the car smoking weed together.
I remember that too, and that was really one of the first ones that blew the lid off. I remember that.
That was like national news. Like, nobody cared about wrestling, but when that happened, it was all over every media outlet. Boy, imagine if TMZ was around then.
Well, and the funny part is that the story so much wasn't Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik got caught with a bunch of drugs in their car. It was, why are Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik in the same car? They're fighting. They hate each other. This is Mr. USA and Mr. International Evil. What are they doing together? That was the part that everybody remembered.
Here's a story that the late Nick Bockwinkel told me one day. And his family obviously believed wrestling, if you hated somebody, there was real heat. Like, there was the belief that it was real, back in the 60s. And Nick said that he was friends with the guy he was feuding with at the time, which was Dory Funk Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And Dory was over the house with the family, and all of a sudden, the wife's parents came to the house, and they legitimately had to have a fight, as if Dory Funk showed up out of nowhere and basically had to throw him out of the house, and it led to a fight just so the in-laws would believe and not think that, oh, my God, why is Dory Funk Jr. in Nick Bockwinkel's house, other than this maniac came in to bring the fight to Nick?
That is insane.
And that's how much they had it protected back in the day.
Yeah. Wow. That's a hell of a story. I never heard that one.
Yes.
Wow. And, of course, for those who don't know, by the way, Nick Bockenwinkle was a former AWA World Champion and Tag Team Champion, and Dory Funk Jr., former NWA World Champion. So, of course, those guys cross paths quite a bit. But, wow, that is something. That's, and I don't know how you get that back. How do you get that feeling back with people when like with WWE, you turn them into a bunch of goofballs for the most part. You don't, you have Roman Reigns and you have Brock Lesnar, but then after that, it's kind of Seth Rollins, Edge, and everybody else, and it's just kind of like, man, where do you get that fire again? How do you stoke that? And AEW, I think, does a better job with it, but they're not perfect either. But how do you get that back? I mean, Joe, you have to build that with your promotion.
You can't, and the problem is, the fans want to believe, okay? And it seems like wrestling has gone out of their way to make you not believe. And it does a disservice to itself. People want to believe. I'm watching matches, and whether there's heat between somebody, people want to be like, oh, I think he really hit him. I think they really don't like each other. Because they want to be enamored, they want to be engaged into it, and especially WWE does everything they can to make sure, hey, everybody's friends, and it's like, you know what? It's still conflict. It still should be good versus bad, and unfortunately, they did a great job with the whole Roman Reigns thing, and he's become a really big deal, but it seems like you do it for that, but you don't want to seem to do it for anything else. And if you do, it comes out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden, the Miz and Edge, what a heated rivalry. It's like, well,
yeah, exactly.
About what?
Yeah, what did they do?
Right, and it's like, now they just expect you to be engaged, and it's like, we're going to do this promo. Nobody is sitting on the edge of their seat to see Miz versus Edge. And you're talking about two guys that are probably WWE Hall of Famers at the end of the road. And it doesn't matter because the way it's been treated, it's hard for you to believe. The way the booking's done, that's a major part of it. I win this week, you win next week. We have a tag match, then we have a 6-man, then we have a blow-off. But then on Monday Night Raw, we have a rematch. It's like...
Well, and I think there's a bigger problem, too, in that... we talk about society again, that everybody wants everything right now. We are an instant society. And one of the great things about pro wrestling was you would get... Someone would show up in a promotion, and... they would get that slow build, and everybody would be kind of sneaking their way up the pyramid a little bit. And, and somebody gets knocked down, but, they'll maybe be able to come back a little bit. That other guy keeps going. And eventually you get to the point where you're at the Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy level, for just as an example. I remember when Bundy came in back, WrestleMania 1 wrestled SD Jones, and he was the main event of WrestleMania 2, and they built all that up for over a year to get him to Hogan. You never see that now. You rarely see that, and because I think part of it is you're trying to make a viral moment. You're trying to get people to go, I got to get these YouTube views, instead of saying I've got to put a good product out there that people are going to really enjoy. And it's not just going to involve two people; it's going to involve our whole roster. So,
well, look at how things were done in the past. Edge, Christian, Val Venus. I remember all those vignettes. It was a 3-step process. First, you came in and you got introduced by a video package, and now we were looking forward to your debut. That was stage 1. Then you got in there with a bunch of jobbers, and I remember when we were first doing the school and starting to run shows, Mike Modest was our initial trainer. And Mike Modest was on Beyond the Mat. He worked for WCW, and, he was pretty big in Japan. And he always had the philosophy of you need to have jobber matches. And I was never understanding that. It's like, I want to see, this guy wrestle that guy in a really good match. But later on, as I started doing shows, I started understanding it. When you bring in and you introduce a new character like WWE did, then they would have them destroy the opponent. Mm-hmm. And they would have them destroy the opponent, and they would be able to showcase all their big moves for people to see that, to where then eventually, they would start, with the bottom of the barrel enhancement talents that you didn't know. Then they would go to a guy like S.D. Jones, who didn't win very much, but he was known because he was on a lot. And then, I remember it with Earthquake. I remember it with Bad News Brown. Everything was built up for the heel to become the opponent for Hulk Hogan. And that guy, it took 6 months, maybe longer, to get to that point to where you believe, like, oh, man, this guy's going to kill Hulkamania. He's the guy. And then, they would have some kind of schmaz, and then they would do something else at Madison Square Garden. And then Hogan would vanquish the heel in most likely a steel cage match in the third match between them. And then that would be it. Now Earthquake started tag teaming with Tugboat, and he was never involved with Hulk Hogan. Now you watch these guys get title shots, especially a heel, who loses clean to the babyface, yet somehow they still get another title shot.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It was very cyclical. You'd climb the mountain, and then you'd come back down a little bit. And if you could, if it was somebody you really liked, you'd find a way to cycle them back through, and and build them up again. But most of the time it was okay. We on to the next one. On to the next one. On to the next one. You had that with Ric Flair all the time. Flair went out and he'd do a few TV shows, but he was also going out to all the territories. And you'd read, like, in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, you'd say, oh, Mark Youngblood got a DQ win over Ric Flair down in Florida. I wonder what's going to happen the next time they wrestle. And they would do stuff like that all over the country and just keep everybody pulled in the NWA, giving these, building up that local guy, making him look good for one shot. And then, of course, Flair would, or Race or whoever would come in and obliterate him. But you would even do those builds in each region, and you'd be like, wow, Flair lost by DQ there. Race lost that. Wow. And you'd be intrigued to see, Tommy Rich wins the NWA title. And then, poof, it goes away. But then
Ronnie Garvin. That one was like the biggest shocker to me. I remember, like, they'd cut in on the TBS show, and they'd be like, oh, my goodness, it's Charlotte, North Carolina this past Tuesday. Ronnie Garvin shocked the world, and he beat Ric Flair for the NWA title. And then 2 weeks later, he lost in a steel cage match, and Flair got the title back.
Something along those lines. Yeah, that's one of the most fascinating stories in wrestling, by the way, about Ronnie Garvin winning the NWA title. If you have not read that, I suggest you Google it, because it's a fascinating 2 or 3 month story building up, how Ronnie got the title. And, a lot of people passed on it because they knew they were going to be a transitional champion. And Ronnie was like, you know what? I'll do it. It's all good. I'll be an NWA champ. I'm fine. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
I remember watching it live, and I was stunned. Like, of all the people, Ronnie Garvin got the title.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked as well. I was waiting for Jimmy Garvin to win the title.
Oh, Jimmy Garvin, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin's great.
Yeah, there you go.
I love Jimmy Garvin.
And of course, we're on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM, Talk of Las Vegas. Myself and Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas. Big card coming up on February 4th. Make sure you check it out, fswvegas.com. Get your tickets now. Don't wait. Get a ticket.
Don't get shut out.
That's right. Of course, we'll be back on the air tomorrow in our regular time slot on Sunday, 8 a.m.
I got to do this again.
Yes, you got to do this again. And I have so many topics, but I left this one for you tonight because I am giving you preliminary credit on a New Year's prediction that you made on the show. Are you ready to hear how much?
I made a lot of them, so go ahead.
So here's an interesting story. We're going to talk about Walter Gunther tomorrow, but what's more interesting about what's going on with NXT, Joe, you said on the show that NXT would be fading out of existence. You thought that the show wouldn't go on. I thought they should tie it up and make tie all three shows together instead of having them separate. Joe, the ratings are in on NXT. They are bad. They just set a record low after doing this whole changeover to try and have the younger hip style, and we're going to have all the rookies, and everybody's going to watch this. And they are bombing out, and WWE word is getting out that they are concerned that this new direction that NXT has taken is not working out. And obviously the numbers are showing it because they are down way below even where they were when they were against AEW, and those two shows were their shows were going head to head. Joe, is NXT going to be able to hang on if this keeps up? They're just over 500,000 viewers, which is down from about 750,000 since they made the change. This is not good.
Well, here's the deal. When NXT was formed and they did this stuff, we knew that it was a developmental territory. It was the minor leagues to the WWE, and people would, hopefully get to that next step. The problem is when they brought in, the Adam Coles and the Keith Lees and the Bobby Fishes, they presented it as legitimate competition for AEW. Now they're like, hey, we're getting rid of all these guys. We're going to go with all these young guys that are up and coming that we hope are going to become future stars of wrestling. Well, they basically just told you, just like nobody watches AAA baseball and AAA G League NBA or any of that stuff, because it is perceived as the minor leagues, that those guys are not going to be seen on WWE television for who knows how long. So why would I watch a minor league product? I go, well, there's too much going on. I go watch Raw and SmackDown. I can watch AEW. And they're telling the fans that this is an inferior product. So why would people watch it?
Yeah, and that was the point that I made when they first made the switch. I was like, why would you want, as someone who has to, for doing the show, I have to watch a lot of wrestling. Why would I waste my time watching people that are going to be green? It's probably not going to be the best wrestling, and once again, you wiped out all the veteran presences on the show. With Tommaso Ciampa being ousted as the NXT champ, now we're down to the rooks. But then all of a sudden, now they're bringing AJ Styles down to show up for a match. They're starting to pull people down to try and increase ratings. This is going to be a decision that I think WWE is going to heavily regret making. And, I don't know how you could put the brakes on it if you wanted to.
Well, it's easy. They're getting the money from USA. So, depending on how long the contract is. See, I'm pretty sure WWE is smart. I'm pretty sure USA can't say, hey, we decided that we don't want to continue anymore, so we're going to give you your 90-day out clause. And they're going to get paid till they're going to get paid. And I believe that's how it's going to be. And then after that, well, then they can go back to the way it was and just train those guys and maybe do it on the network or something like that with Peacock, and they make it an exclusive show, because nobody's going to want to pay for that product.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that this show is going to fade real quick, and they're trying to put their eggs in the Braun Breaker basket, Solo Sikoa, and that's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to keep that show afloat.
They're taking those two guys
and Mandy Rose. So trying to make Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction so the guys will tune in and be like, oh, they're hot.
They're talking about the young guys, but they have to rely on the name value. That's Rick Steiner's kid. That's Rikishi's kid.
Which they didn't do, which is the amazing part.
Well, they did have Rick Steiner come out, right? Then they acknowledged it. And
they showed it when he won the title.
But, there's no way. It's like, it's kind of like, hey, Drew McIntyre, he was a crappy champ. He didn't draw anybody at WrestleMania. Oh, wait, they didn't have any fans at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So, so it's the same thing with Braun Breaker. It's like not his fault. He's probably going to be a huge star.
He will be eventually, yeah.
But in the past, you wouldn't see him until he came to the main roster. Now everybody was on NXT. I saw Roderick Strong was wrestling LA Knight on the pre-show for SmackDown. So those guys are 38 years old, 37 years old. I can't see them lasting in NXT much longer. They're either going to be released or they're going to be put on the main roster.
Yep. So there you go. All right. Well, Joe, great show. Man, we got old school, new school, and all sorts of schools on that one. How about it?
Yeah.
A lot of fun. So once again, you can follow Joe on FSW Vegas on Twitter and go to FSWVegas.com. Follow our show at Mark Hoke Show on Twitter, Facebook, The Mark Hoke Show. Download those podcasts, kids. They're really, really good. And we got Bangladesh and Uzbekistan and all sorts of countries listening. We do appreciate it.
Bangladesh.
Yeah. So we will see you guys tomorrow once again, 8 a.m. And coming up, Harvey Hyde and the boys doing the old Trojan football reports. Stick around here on KDWN.